Great. I just want to welcome everybody to Coronavirus Conversations with Stan Jefferson and Mike Ziegelhofer. Stan's the superintendent of Mansfield City Schools, and Mike is the superintendent of Lexington Schools. They have joined us today, and we're starting just a touch early to make sure that we're all of our technology is working, and we can correct for it on the fly if we need to. First of all, I think just the welcome to everybody that's attending today. We anticipate a big crowd. My name is Jay Allred. I'm the president and publisher of Source Media Properties in Mansfield, Ohio. And we are doing these conversations, these lunch hour webinars every weekday, and during this strange and unusual and uncertain period of time to really try to accomplish one thing, and that is to provide helpful and useful information to the attendees that can help them navigate their lives and manage what is almost every part of their life that is changed right now. And we can't do this work without, and we really need to thank our members, our newsroom partners, and in this case, the Facebook Journalism Project, which delivered a grant to help us fund this series and make this thing all come together for us. So we're very, very grateful for that support. And I want to just hand it over to our guests real quick to allow them to introduce themselves to you. And after that, we'll get started. So Mike Ziegelhofer, longtime superintendent of Lexington Schools. I'd like to offer you an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about how you got into education and how things are going in Lexington, just kind of from a high level.
Good morning, I'm Mike Ziegelhofer. Like you said, I'm superintendent of Lexington Schools. I'm in my 45th year of education and my 32nd year here at Lexington. And this is my 22nd year as superintendent. In the midst of the very unusual and challenging situation we face, things are going very well. Nothing goes perfectly, but it certainly is going as well as we could hope it would go at this point. It's all hands on deck, and our people are just doing an outstanding job of doing everything they can to serve the best interest of our kids.
Thanks, Mike. And also joining us is Superintendent Stan Jefferson of Mansfield City Schools. And Stan, I'll give you just a couple seconds to introduce yourself.
My name is Stan Jefferson, Superintendent of the Mansfield City Schools. This is my first year back home in Mansfield. This is my 44th year in the business of education, 28 years prior here in the Mansfield City Schools, and my first year back.
That's fantastic. Thanks, Stan. Everybody, I'm going to
also add, Jay, if I could interrupt. Stan and I go back about 40 years.
Wow.
To the days when we were both teaching and coaching track. I was coaching and teaching at Willard. Stan was at senior high. We've been good friends for a long time.
That's fantastic.
Same here. Same here.
We've got a little bit of an issue real quick with our Facebook Live broadcast. So I may need to end this broadcast real quick, and then we'll come right back to it. But I'm going to see if I can do this. So I'm going to actually start with this question real quick that I had, which is, let's just talk about the current situation. Can you give us a high-level assessment of how distance learning is going in your respective districts? Maybe some success stories and some challenges that you're facing? Stan, how about we start with you?
Well, we have done a number of different things in our district. As you well know, our district was able to get Chromebooks towards the middle to the latter end of the month of February, just prior to all of COVID-19 hitting us.
Okay.
So at that point, it put us at a disadvantage in terms of getting our social policy for our Chromebooks and to deploy our Chromebooks at the time when the governor had decided to shut us down at that particular point. However, we have went with a 10-day package that went out that week, and then we have issued another 10-day that has been deployed throughout our district. We still have tremendous work by our teachers and our parents as they work not only from our 10-day package, but the fact that we have all of that online on our tigerpride.com website, which can be then used as well, and which they can send that information back to us. So our parents have a number of different ways to get academic information to us, either by person or even by the use of their technology at home. So we do also have teachers and counselors, and as well as other personnel throughout the district in contact with our students and parents through the use of their technology. All of our teachers have some form of a laptop that they have at home in order to get in contact with their students. So we are working through a number of different mediums in order to provide not only academic information, but as well as to stay in contact with students and families in our district.
That's awesome. And my wife teaches at Richland Academy School of Academic Arts, and they're doing similar things. Mike, can you talk a little bit about how things are going in Lexington?
Well, we've made the decision to go on a weekly basis.
Okay.
So our teachers are creating weekly lesson plans like they do during the course of a school year typically. Lesson plans for a Monday through Friday that for each of their courses or subjects that they teach, including music, art, gym. And they've been working diligently to try to make that look like online versus what it looks like when we're typically in school. And they've done a great job with that. And they've done a lot of collaborating together to create, take advantage, I guess I should say, of the variety of different educational opportunities that are available virtually. We're providing laptops for any student in the district that doesn't have one. So far, we've loaned out over 300.
Wow. Okay.
All they need to do is give me a call if they need a laptop, and we set them up with a laptop. Our teachers have done a great job of keeping in contact with the kids, as Stan said, not just academically, but just how you doing? We miss you. We can do this. You can do this. We'll get through this. One of the decisions we made is to not give letter grades to the work we're doing. We're giving them credit for giving their best effort and completing the assignments, regardless of what they are. Trying to address the issue that everybody's situation at home is not the same. And it's certainly one thing everybody has in common is this is totally new. It's new to the teachers, it's new to the kids, it's new to the parents. We also know that the parents are facing the daily struggle of get on the computer, let's get this done. Mm-hmm. I'm not a math teacher, I don't know anything about English, whatever the case might be. So we're trying to make this, try and take all that in consideration when we're working with this and designing this program so that it can go as smoothly as it can given the situation, but also be as painless as possible as well.
We had someone on the live. We had someone on last week who our topic was pro tips for remote work, and one of the things that you touched on, Mike, was how important it is to really mindfully check in. Well, in his case, he was talking about with your workers or with your team at work. but how important it is to just really mindfully check in with kids and how are you actually doing? Because normally you would see all these nonverbal signals from them in the classroom, and a teacher would have that sense, and you just lose that sense when you're learning remotely. And you know, there's this separation that happens that you really need to try to close that gap.
Absolutely. Our teachers miss their kids. They want them to know that. They want them to know that they care about them, and that we're in this together and we'll make this work.
I appreciate that. And I know all of our parents do too. It's just such an awkward situation. And you guys had to, I mean, you had to spin that up so quickly. That just must have been an enormous exercise in teamwork and cooperation on the part of all the teachers that were there.
Jay, I'd like to see if I can piggyback off of some of the information that Mike has stated.
Please do.
You know, obviously you are right, Jay, about the fact of constant communication. Here in Mansfield, we are having administratively 2 meetings a day. One at normally at 8:30 in the morning, and then a follow-up afternoon meeting at 3:30 by Zoom or by phone, as we communicate on how did that day go in terms of from an academic and operational point of view, because so many people forget you still have to run the district. Okay, beyond the academics, beyond everything else, the district has to be ran from that point. So the meetings that we are having in the morning, in the afternoon, with our directors, with our building level principals are going on daily. Along with that, we are in communication with our the membership of the MSEA, in which as we deal with the day-to-day operations of personnel, and as we deal with the day-to-day issues that changes every day based upon what could have occurred for that given day that we have heard either from ODE or the state. So it is very important that this communication that we are having internally, and then to share that communication then with our parents, the rest of the internally with our staff members, and then externally with our parents, as we look at a simple thing such as, what are we going to do for class day? What are we doing for a prom? What are we doing for graduation? What are we doing for summer programs? Things that we would just normally have answers to, now we have to formulate answers in terms of what are we doing. So that's why we are meeting every day, Monday through Fridays, and sometimes as much as you don't want to interfere with people's weekend, even maybe on the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that often. You guys are basically inventing this as you move along. Many of the things that you're doing, you know, you just don't have the, there's no template. And that kind of brings me to my next question, which is for both of you, what has surprised you the most about your school community in the midst of this sudden shutdown? You know, you've had to ask a lot of them. What are you seeing from your school community that has really, you know, stood out to you?
For us in Mansfield, we have been so fortunate to have, which I'm sure is going the same thing for Mike in Lexington, our community and our agencies and our parents working collaboratively with the school district. You know, just 2 months ago, approximately, when we had a MLK Day event in which we said, we are one community, was the theme of the program, with the emphasis on the last 5 letters of unity. We have had agencies such as UMADOC, volunteers from the organization of UMADOC, helping us for our lunch and breakfast program, helping at numerous sites in the district. We are currently having the United Way, Dan Barnes organization with the United Way, and volunteers who are now will work with our food services in terms of lunch and breakfast, as well as helping in terms of if we need help with distribution of academic information to families' homes, which is what UMADOC is also doing. So we have had our parents who have been so cooperative during this period of time, and our students as we work through this uncharted water that all school districts across the state is really rewriting a playbook that we don't have initially for something of this nature.
Mike, what about in Lexington? What's really stood out to you about how your school community has responded to this unprecedented event?
I think for me, it's reaffirmed more than surprised. It's reaffirmed that everybody's focused on what each kid's long-range best interests are, and everybody is working diligently, as I mentioned, to try to find ways to continue to meet those needs, although they look totally different and are totally different than what we have in the past. What stood out the most is the fact that people's huge hearts have certainly risen to the occasion, and the amount of hours that they've spent collaborating, be it second grade teachers or social studies teachers or science teachers, to try to figure out how we're going to go about reinventing the wheel in some ways, and trying to continue to meet our kids' needs has really been more than impressive. And I know that our parents greatly appreciate that. As I mentioned earlier, our people are very sensitive to what's going on in the homes and what challenges this new way brings at home, and trying to be sensitive to that, and at the same time try to address academic needs. I've just been overwhelmed with everybody's heart, everybody's hard work, everybody's determination to make this work and make it work as well as it can possibly work.
Yeah, it really has been kind of heartwarming to watch. One of the things we get asked a lot, gentlemen, is that I'm sure you're in touch with your colleagues around the state. Share with us a little about how those discussions that you have with them, and how the superintendent community kind of sees decisions, and how those decisions, do you see yourself making the decisions collectively, or how will you make decisions moving forward for the final part of the school year?
Well, I'm going to have to confess I'm not in communication with superintendents around the state. But we do, superintendents in our area, we've met regularly up until the point where we couldn't get together anymore. Now we have a meeting planned for tomorrow morning virtually. Superintendents in Richland, Morrow, Crawford County. This will be our third such meeting since all this hit as a group. As Stan can attest, it's one of the few times everybody's attended. And it's pretty good at these meetings.
Yeah.
We spend a lot of time going around the table talking about what's going on in each district, what we're thinking about doing to solve problems and address issues. That's what tomorrow morning's meeting is going to be about. We spend time reaffirming each other and offering whatever advice or suggestions we might have for each other. We end up stealing things, and sounds that makes sense. We need to think about that, or we hadn't thought about that. Appreciate you mentioning that. They've been very, very good meetings, and the districts are completely different. They're different demographically. They're different socioeconomically. There are all kinds of ways there's difference, but what's the same about them all is A, we're in the same boat.
Yep.
And B, we all have the same task, and that's meeting the variety of different needs our kids have in this really different time.
Stan, how about you? Are you in pretty frequent touch with superintendents around the state, and does your experience echo Mike's right now?
Yes, we've been involved, as Michael said, here with the superintendents from our area. I won't be able to be a part of the one tomorrow because we have an administrators meeting by Zoom tomorrow morning that is conflicting with that. But I will then take time out to later on the course of that day and over the weekend call the various superintendents who will be in that meeting to get information on in terms of what they're doing. So from the Ashland County, Richland County, Crawford, and Morrow, I will have the opportunity to speak to them. But I do have a number of different superintendents since we are part of the Ohio Mid-Sized Urban Leadership Collaborative, from superintendents from Sandusky, Oberlin, Warrensville Heights, Lima, to get ideals on what they are doing in their school district concerning all of these issues. So it allows me the opportunity to take a look at things from the northeast part of the state, northwest part of the state, as well as looking at what we have here in north central Ohio to then to take back to our directors and administrators on and sharing out what other superintendents and other school districts are doing. As Mike said, at the end of the day, the most important thing that we must do as educators is what are we doing that will benefit our school community and our students. So getting an ideal that you may not have thought about that, but what someone else is doing, and you can implement that in your school district that's going to help your students. This is what this is all about. It's about students.
Speaking of students, thousands of students were set to turn their tassels in May, including one that's near and dear to me, my daughter Maggie. That seems very much in question at this point. And what can you share with the families of graduating seniors and graduating seniors about what they should expect next? And I know that I'm asking you to pull out your crystal ball, but I sort of am. And keep it in hand because a couple of these questions are going to require that. But what should graduating seniors expect next?
Well, I'll share that our high school administrative team has had lengthy discussions about that topic. Maybe about a week ago, they sent a communication to all of our seniors, sharing with them how they feel about them and the concern and the sympathy they have, and for the fact that this is happening during their senior year.
Yep.
Just kind of talking with them about how we persevere and overcome. One of the things that we've done is we've established a Friday and a Saturday in late June. Or I'm sorry, a Friday and a Sunday in late June, and also a Friday and a Saturday or a Friday and a Sunday in late July that we've scheduled for a prom on a Friday night, a dance for our seniors, and the graduation on Sunday. Should the crystal ball show that we can do that by the end of June or the end of July, and made the connections with the various venues so that we can secure those dates. We haven't crystal balled what we do next. If those two don't pan out, little time can go by before we need to do that. But one way or another, we'll figure out a way to properly honor and recognize our seniors.
Stan, what's the plan right now? What's the thinking at Mansfield City Schools for graduating seniors?
Well, first of all, I would like to state that every school district in the great state of Ohio, and really across the country, value the traditions of class day, the prom, graduation. Those are sacred, traditional aspects of any school district. We value that as well, and just in our communications, we are discussing these same things to our community. We are going to have a meeting next week with our high school administrative team as we look at what are we going to do concerning those issues. Because of the uncertainty of COVID-19, it is hard for us to put affirmative dates and not knowing what will be the governor's mandate as we move forward. That does not take away the fact that we do not want that. We want that for our seniors, and our seniors deservingly, just as we did, should have that. Our senior class of last year received over $3 million in scholarship. We want to celebrate that for those seniors and with their families. So we are going to have a meeting and determine where do we go with that, so we can give some type of ideal, but to say at a particular point right now, not knowing what may happen after May the 1st, it would be hard for us to say right now how that will look, but we do want to have that. We do want to have those seniors be able to cherish something that every senior across this state and America look forward to.
And I just want to sort of segue off of that. What about the summer and next fall? As a parent, and frankly, in the business that we're in, we see that remote learning can be a struggle sometimes. We've got folks that are trying to manage their jobs and be homeschool teachers and do all of that kind of stuff. And I think it's natural and realistic to believe that lots of kids are not moving forward academically as quickly as they would were they in a traditional classroom, despite the best efforts of everyone involved. It's not an ideal situation. Have you guys given thought, or what thought have you given to how this might affect academic readiness for a 4th grader going into 5th grade or an 11th grader going into 12th grade next year, and how you might mitigate that either over the summer or rolling into next year's curriculum?
For Mansfield, Jay, we are going to have we have already discussed this issue. We're going to discuss further with our administrators, our directors, and the MSCA. But as I sit here right now, I see 3 phases of the summer. Think about the fact that our 3rd grade grading period came to an end on March the 13th. And we have not had any face-to-face instruction since March the 16th. And as much as we sit and discuss distance learning, educational research will say we need face-to-face for social emotional learning for students. So with that in mind, we will have our traditional summer school program that has always been there, unless the governor changes something throughout the course of this summer so we got to put that out there. If we can have face-to-face, we will have our traditional summer school program for our grades 7 through 12. But we also must need and realize that those students that are pre-K through grade 6, they have lost almost a quarter of education for the year. We are going to have to put in for the months of June and July, if we can meet, reading and math skills for our students. By the time we go into August, I think we start school, I think it's that August 26th start date, approximately. We must have conversation, once again, with our MSCA in the fact that we need to do a extended learning starting August the 1st for pre-K through grade 6, in terms of at least some form of an abbreviated schedule in which we will have to look at how would that look with MSEA involvement. Because at the end of the day, our parents are already asking the same question that you just asked.
Yeah.
We have enough challenges facing us to lose a quarter of the year of instruction. We must gain that back as much as we can in the summer. So for us, every school district academic game plan may be different, but for us, traditional summer school program, a reading, math program, and then a pre-K through grade 6, starting August 1 up until the time that we start our schooling on August 26th, of some form of getting our teachers. And we know that we will have to talk to the MSCA on compensation and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, it's about students.
Mike, what are you guys thinking in Lexington about sort of closing the gap over the summertime or leading up into the next academic year?
We've talked, we already have, we've been for several months now planning our summer programs like we do traditionally. Okay. So our plans are already in place for our math. We have what we call math and science camps at different times in the summer that also incorporate the ELA, the reading and writing into both of those camps. So we've had several hundred kids participate, for example, last summer in those camps. We have those scheduled and those planned. We'll see whether they are allowed to take place or not. We talk now, like Stan said, we're 3/4 of the way through the school year when this happens. So we're going to finish out the last quarter of the school year virtually. We're going to do that the best we can. What we talk about here is one of the things we worry about, and school districts everywhere worry about every year, is what I call the summer slide. It's different in different kids. It depends on their particular situations, how the impact summer has on them. Just in general, we're looking at pretty much the idea of having back-to-back summers, in essence.
Yep.
So what we're trying to do in this last quarter of this school year, as much as anything, is prevent a double slide, if that makes sense. So to the degree to which we're introducing new information during this online period of April and May, and moving forward academically, To the extent you can, that's great. But what we want to make sure we reinforce what we've been teaching them, what they've been learning, so that we can do the best we can of trying to prevent that slide academically for kids doubling. What we did the first week that we were off school, our spring break was in the middle of the first 3 weeks that schools were closed.
Mm-hmm.
So in those first 2 weeks, we wanted to give our teachers an opportunity to have enough time to plan as best they can for the 5 lesson plan a week thing that we started this week. We came up with that because we wanted something that if this was more short term, this would work. If this goes into the rest of the school year, this will work as well.
Mm-hmm.
But in that first 2 weeks, what our teachers did was researched and provided on our Facebook page, our web pages, educational links that kids and parents could go on to give them something to do that it's associated with our state standards, associated with the topics that are being covered in our classes. Not quite as formal as what we're doing now in the lesson plan phase. And I envision us talking about and preparing something like that over the summer as well, in addition to our camps. I'm not so sure the degree to which we could turn our camps into something virtual. We haven't had those conversations yet.
Mm-hmm.
But we know one thing: we just can't leave them hanging for 6
months.
That's right. So we're going to work out something that we can give them that will help as best it can with them over the summer months. But we also know to some degree summer's got to be summer too.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to see if I can move to a couple of questions from, looks like we've got some questions from our audience, but we've also got some questions from the intrepid reporters at Source Media who are tuning into this broadcast as well. But from Cindy W., she has a question about special ed, and she wants to ask, how are you guys in your individual districts handling special education, instruction, and therapies?
I'll let Mike go ahead first.
Go ahead, Stan.
Our director, Jonathan Burris, has done a great job in terms of making sure that staying in contact with all of the agencies and with the Ohio Department of Education, and making sure that we are doing everything we can to follow and provide for services for our students. So we have a number of different things that we are doing, and through our conversation that we have daily, and making sure that it is equitable in terms of taking care of our students who are on 504s or IEPs, and making sure that everything is done correctly for our services for our students. So we have a number of different things that. Jay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I had some feedback coming back.
Sorry about that. I've got you now.
But in terms of making sure of that, we have been in contact with our intervention specialist teachers, and making sure that we have reached out to our students who are on those services. So I think that in terms of making sure that we address those issues, that we have done that, and going to continue to find ways to make sure that we can even enhance.
Well, I'm gonna shout out our special ed director, Tracy McDaniel, and our principals and our intervention specialist teachers who are doing a great job of doing everything they can to meet the accommodations and modifications to the curriculum that are required by the students' IEPs and their 504 plans. I'm also going to shout out to EJ Therapy. It's the company that provides our therapy services for our students. They have stepped up and are working out the plan. I think they've already begun with some kids, but they're working out the plan to do the therapies virtually. I wasn't sure how that would look, but I'm told that that can be done, both physical therapies, speech therapies. Our teachers who are providing reading mentoring to students are continuing that virtually. So doing everything we can, as best we can, to provide for the needs of each student, regardless of what those needs are.
That's a great answer. We've got another parent asked question, and this is, am I supposed to be teaching my kids right now? How much time should my kids spend on academics every day during this virtual learning time? Great question.
Unfortunately, the answer is kind of yes. Kind of, sort of, anyway. We've been very cognizant of that, and we've talked about that in our meetings. We've talked about that in communications with our staff. We don't expect a kid to sit in front of a computer for 5 or 6 hours a day. We're asking for a lesson to be somewhere in the 20 to 30 minute range at the most. You know, if your kid's in junior high or high school, they've got 5 or 6 classes they take each day. Basically the same thing in elementary school. They've got all the different subject areas. So we want to be cognizant of that. You know, it's not going to work to ask a kid to put in that kind of time or to handle that kind of pressure. Everybody doesn't. Some kids do really well. We have our own online school, so we've had kids that have been online for several years going to school, and it works great given their particular situation. But for most kids, you know, locked in a chair at the kitchen table in front of a computer for very long doesn't work. So we want our lessons, our teachers are being very cognizant of that in terms of the length of the lessons. We want to make sure parents understand that that's not necessary and give them breaks and need to go out in the driveway and shoot baskets or run around the backyard or whatever they can do to get some fresh air and take a break. I have noticed even with my own granddaughter that they're way more willing to be online in front of a computer for a lengthy period of time if it's something different than schoolwork.
Yeah, right. I have too.
But we do want to be cognizant of that, and for the kids' sake and for mom and dad's sake too. It's a tough situation to be in.
Stan, what advice are you giving to parents who have that exact same question? You know, should they be trying to be teachers right now, and how much time should they be dedicating during the day to try to be teachers even though they aren't?
Research shows that, Jay, that you learn in small bits, small parts. So that 20 to 30 minute learning range, which then you will take a break. However, the challenges for our parents, and I think it's the challenges in many school districts, is that the work that is being asked of for students today may be, even to some degree, very difficult for a parent who's working 2 jobs to provide for their family and then to come home. And can they help? How much can they help with that as they are just trying to make sure that ends meet in terms of what has occurred throughout the state and the country? So I think that as we do the virtual learning, the distance learning, or whether you're sending paper at home, that we have to keep in mind on just how much time even parents have to work with their child in terms of that education. But at the same time, what we are seeing with virtual learning is what I just read in the paper, I think either last night or this morning, where Ohio State is going to completely this summer school all online for the summer because of COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
So as we move up the grades towards colleges, those students pretty much don't have a problem with that. Matter of fact, their learning style to that. But for our pre-K through grade 6, and even for some middle school kids, the aspect of not having that face-to-face and then asking mom or dad or grandma that, hey, can you help me with this, makes it a very difficult situation.
Another from a parent. What curricular resources, apps, or videos are available to help me with virtual education? Are there any recommendations that you guys can make, or are you making resources available for parents that are being sort of called up to teach kids? And if you are, how can those parents access those resources?
In our case, the teachers are providing those.
Oh, great. Okay.
And so they would access those and become aware of those through their various teachers. We've identified some. We've asked the teachers to identify some, given whatever their particular grade level is, subject matter. We're using some Khan Academy.
Okay.
As a resource. For example, I'm not going to be able to rattle them off, but I do know that their teachers will be the resource for them for such apps and links that might help them. But one of the reasons that we're not per se grading our assignments and giving kids an A or B or C is so that there's a little bit of pressure off in terms of, we want you to try. We want you to think about it. We want you to work about it. We want you to give you your best effort. The teachers are looking at it more as a formative assessment, and that they'll look at them and see where the kids were on track and where they weren't. There'll be feedback to the kids about the things that they need to look at in terms of where they weren't quite right. But we want to, when I'm handing out laptop computers to parents when they come in to borrow them, part of the conversation is the same with everyone. When I say, well, good luck with all this, and they go, thanks, I'll need it. Who's going to help my kid with math? And I'm not talking about algebra, I'm talking about 5th grade.
Yeah.
So we get that. And so all we want is the information, the lessons will be provided. We want the kid to sit down and give it their best shot, complete the assignment best you can, submit it to your teacher, and they'll take it from there.
Jay, we are very much similar. Our teachers are reaching out to the parents on how can they help with their child. However, I do want to just let you know that we have hired, as of a couple of weeks ago, a technology director who has now have been giving and showing our teachers various different apps and various different professional development that they can use in their classroom. So between a technology director who is now working with our teachers and our teachers who can now work with our parents, here it will help our students in terms for that particular issue.
I would also add, Jay, that this is all evolving.
Yep.
What we're doing today, it might be different next week or 2 weeks from now, just because of what we learn and what we become aware of. The principal, we have a pre-K through 6 curriculum director, and we have a 7 through 12 curriculum director. We have a special ed coordinator. We've got building principals and assistant principals in the buildings. They and the teachers are constantly doing research. They're becoming aware of different things. the emails are going back and forth constantly about, hey, just found this great website, check this out. Or just found this, just became aware of this great app, let's check this out and see if this works. Or I think this one's awesome. That's happening constantly between the teachers and the principals and the curriculum directors. And the other thing, and it was shared with me, and I shared it with our staff. We found a post, Jeremy Seacrest found a post on Facebook by a teacher from Texas that was involved in Hurricane Katrina. Mm-hmm. And she posted some words of encouragement to the COVID-19 era from the Hurricane Katrina era educators. And my summary of that is simply this: relax. You've got this. It will work. We thought, how is this horrible thing where our schools are closed for so long because of Hurricane Katrina going to impact the kids' lives? And today, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're teachers, they're hairdressers, they're bricklayers, they're great auto mechanics. They're doing great. That it didn't damage their futures because we got inconvenienced for a few months about school. So it's something for us to keep in mind that these kids, some of the things they'll learn from this that'll matter the most is perseverance and fighting through and not giving up and not quitting and knowing, I got this. It's tough, but I can do this. They find out a lot about themselves they didn't know.
You know, as we sort of move toward the end of today's broadcast, we've got a few minutes left. And if you've got some questions for Mike or Stan, please feel free to drop them in the chat so that we can try to get those in front of them. One that has come up, and we talked a little bit about it before we went live, was the breakfast and lunch program that both districts have implemented for their students since in-person education has ended. Can you talk a little bit about how that's going? You know, how many, make a guesstimate of the percentage of your students that are eligible or are receiving the meals? Talk to us just a little bit about how everything's going, and do you see that, are there improvements that you need to make as you move forward, and how long do you plan to continue the program going forward from here?
Well, first of all, our Director of School Improvement, Andrea Moyer, has done a great job, along with working with our Director of Food Services, Lauren Moran, in terms of making sure that our students are being fed. Through their coordination and through Andrea's hard work, we are feeding, like I said before, every day. We are going to feed until, for sure, until the academic school year comes to an end, which was on our original calendar to June 1. As we move towards the summer and we go into summer school programs, we may be still feeding again. As you well know, we are 100%. We feed 100% in our district, 2 meals a day for breakfast and lunch. So we have been very fortunate. Once again, as I mentioned, with our community partners, we've been very fortunate with the work of the food service people. We've been very fortunate for all those who have been helping serve meals at our 3 sites. But I do want to take this time to recognize Andrea and Lauren for their hard work that they have done.
Mike, how about you guys? Does Lexington have a sense of, is there a beginning, a middle, or is there an end to food service that you have planned, or is it are you prepared to move into the summer if that's necessary?
Right now, our plan is to serve through the school year. Okay,
just like you normally would.
Yes, and certainly as time goes on, we will evaluate the situation. If we need to serve lunch over the summer, we'll do that. We're serving 1 day a week on Mondays. We give 5 lunches. We give the whole week's worth of lunches that Monday. Mm-hmm. Last month, Tricia Volz and Karen Yoder Tricia is our food service director and Karen Yoder is her assistant. They have coordinated this and done an outstanding job. Tricia came up with the idea of why don't we see if we can't give them all 5 lunches at once, and that way they don't have to keep coming back here every day. And that's worked really well. We do drive-by. They don't have to get out of their car. They drive up. We come up to the car. We hand them the lunch and the drinks that they need for however many kids they have. It's open to any kid in the district. There's no qualifying. You want lunches?
Come on over.
On Mondays between 11:30 and 12:30. Each Monday, we've done it 3 Mondays now. Each time it's increased.
Okay.
We gave out about 1,000 lunches this past Monday morning. So that would equate to about 200 kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's gone very well. It's been very well received. And I would just say through this whole thing, whether we're talking about the schooling or the therapy services or lunch or providing laptops or answering questions, our people have been remarkable.
This is we just got this question from Carl Hunnell, who's given it to me from a parent, and this just really speaks to the parents trying their best to come along. And I think that you guys, I think you've already answered it, but I just want you to hear it from them. This parent asks, I can't teach math using Common Core practices. It's just not how I learned math, and I don't get it. Can I teach it the way that I know it? And I kind of think I know the answer to that question, which is give it the old college try, and you teach it. You teach them however way you want them, however way you can teach it. And thank you very much for the effort. Is that the answer to that question?
I can't either. I think if you're adding or multiplying or dividing something, what's most important is getting the right answer. I don't know. It matters how you go about getting it.
Jay, we have an outstanding chief academic officer in Stephen Rizzo. And as we work through all these type of questions, yes, we need to, whatever those parents can do, just do. This is, we are rewriting a new book right now in the field of education that Mike and I did not take when we were getting our administrator certificate. So as we reach out to parents and we reach out to our teachers, the key thing that we need to do is just give our best effort, and whatever that is, then that's fine. Give your best effort, whatever that is.
We talk about you don't go far wrong when you just do what's right.
Mm-hmm.
And our decisions need to be based on what we'd want the school to do if that kid was mine.
It's a good question. It's a good way to answer it.
And so we're going to do whatever we've got to do to provide each kid what we'd want our own kid to have.
Gentlemen, this is from Eric Schroeder. He thinks, do you think parents will have a whole new appreciation for teachers after being home with their kids and students during this time?
By day 3.
I imagine they will.
By day 3.
In many countries, the educators are looked upon as people who are helping prepare the leaders for the future, for tomorrow. And I think that one of the things that we must realize is that we are all in this together. And that's why we are using our theme in Mansfield, that we are one community. Regardless of what occupation that you do, we are one community for the betterment of our community. So if we're going to lead that group of people, which are our students, then we have to love them. And if we're going to save a group of people, we have to be willing to serve them. So if you're not in the loving and serving business, then you shouldn't be in education.
Amen. That's a great way to end today. And it's almost as if Stan knew that we were 59 minutes and 45 seconds into this podcast or into this webinar. I want to thank Stan and Mike for taking the time out of their day to appear with us today. We knew that this was going to be a popular webinar, and we knew that folks were going to have a lot of questions, and they sure did. We had a little bit of technical difficulty on our Facebook live stream, so we will be uploading this finished video to Facebook later on today so that folks who couldn't be with us today in person will have an opportunity to watch it again afterwards. We'll also make it available on richlandsource.com for those who were not able to be with us live today. The work that we're doing on this webinar, the ones that preceded it and the ones that will happen tomorrow and next week are all really powered by the Source's members, their corporate and newsroom partners, and in this particular case, a grant from the Facebook Journalism Project, and we couldn't be more grateful. Our goal with this project has been from the beginning to try to be helpful and useful to our community during this time by connecting them with practical ways to navigate their uncertain lives right now. And hopefully we did that for you guys today somewhat. I know that Stan and Mike certainly educated me on some things that I didn't know. I got smarter as a result of that, and that was the goal. So tomorrow, I hope that you'll join us at 12 noon with representatives from University Hospitals and Ohio Health, who are going to join us and talk about how they're getting ready for what the governor and Dr. Acton are predicting will be a peak in the coming weeks. And if you'd like to be notified about that webinar, all you need to do is follow us if you're registered here on Crowdcast, and you'll be notified about the webinar. And like I said, we will go live at noon on Friday, and we'll have a full slate of shows next week as well. And we'll make sure we let you know what those shows are. Thanks again, Mike. Thank you again, Stan, for taking the time out to appear with us and join with us to help our community understand, in this particular case, what's going on with schools and what we can expect moving forward. Hopefully we'll get to check back in with you when we have graduation, whenever graduation and prom happens. But when that happens, you can be sure the Source will be there and to document and rejoice right along with you as we get those kids graduated and move into the next school year. Thanks a lot, everybody, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.